Okay, so let's get started with talking about image mounting and previewing images. These are techniques that we use to triage our scenes and triage the computers at our scenes, so whether we need them or not, and save us a lot of work. This is typically what the process looks like for doing a forensics in the digital area. We identify the infected systems, we acquire the image, we do data recovery on it, get all the deleted stuff, we analyze it and see what we find, and we write a report. It can be very time consuming. Any one of these things could take days, weeks, months, even years. So when you have a case where you have 200, 300 drives, do we really need to do every drive in here? I may never get done with this if I have to do every drive in here. And that's where mounting and previewing a drive comes in. To safely preview a drive, you got to connect it with a write blocker. And then you can use software like Ncase. Now, the older versions of Ncase, like Ncase 5 and Ncase 6, were really good at looking at the drives and even looking at some of the deleted files that were on the drives. Ncase 7 is a little bit sticky about it. Quite frankly, the interface of Ncase 7 is a pain in the butt. And FTK Imager can be used to mount this drive, and so it looks like a normal drive that you have, and you can go through and take a look at what's there. And then you can make the determination, do I need to process this drive further, or can I skip it and move on to a drive that I need to spend my time on?
Now that we have an image file created, let's load that into Imager. We do that from the File menu, Add Evidence Item, also noting that on the toolbar there's an icon for Add Evidence Item as well, the green plus. So one of those two ways you start the process. Then take note of what we can add to Imager, physical drive, whatever our system recognizes. Same thing with a logical drive. Whatever logical drives our system recognizes we can add. We can add an image file, which is what we will do. And then lastly, we can also add the contents of a folder. One thing that you can't add is an individual file. Note you can add an image file, but not an individual file, only the contents of a folder. So now we'll add an image file. I'll click Next, and I need to browse to the location of that image file. And of course, I'll go to on my desktop where I created my ACE Prep folder. There is my image file, and making sure that I'm adding the image file and not the accompanying summary text file. I'm adding that in. I'll click Finish. And when I do, I'm prompted for a password because remember I encrypted this. So I'll supply my password, which was ACE. And now the file opens. Of course, with Imager, I can expand my image file and get an idea of the structure of my target.
When you're on a scene, you have a limited amount of time. You don't have all day, you don't have all week, you don't have all month. Hey, I've been on scenes where we've been out there in the middle of the night and the bad guy didn't even know we were there. And you want to have a lot of fun with that. So you've got to go for where the low-hanging fruit is. You've got to go to the default libraries. And let's face life, 90% or 99% of all users, when they hit download, they just know it goes to downloads. They don't change where things go. When they save a picture, it saves it in the pictures library. That's why Windows puts them there. That's why they have these libraries versus documents and settings now. So you got to understand in a Windows world, you go to those. In a Mac world, you go to where these things are. And those will help you out. Here's a little thing. In XP and 7, you have the difference between the documents and setting where each of your users under document and settings were, but in Windows 7 that switched to the users file where each user has their folder in there, and then all of their documents and settings and app data is in there. These are the kind of things that you have to keep in mind when you're dealing with each of these systems. So, your discussion this week is to answer one question, respond to 3 of your classmates' questions. The lab is week 3, lab 1, and I want a one-page paper describing the file architecture of Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, and ID the top 3 places where evidence may be found. Now, we're going to talk about files architecture later, but I want you to get used to looking up things and finding these answers for yourself, because tomorrow will be Windows 10, Windows 11, Mac OS, whatever it might be, and you've got to get used to the ever-changing world of technology. So do some research, write your papers.